Um, right. I have the pleasure to kick us off with an input from Ashoka. My name is Florian Rutsch, and I co-lead the Europe Fellowship Program at Ashoka, where I helped co-author this report that Leonora was just mentioning. It was a collaborative effort of a number of players in the global ecosystem. I'll just briefly share our perspective on why we got involved in this work and why we believe funding system change is important. I'm going to show a couple of slides that help clarify our perspective. So I think what's clear and why we're all here in this session is that we need better education systems, right? The educational challenges that we want to solve in the world, that they're products of broken systems. So we need to ultimately, with any innovation solution that we develop, to address the broken systems behind those problems. And as Ashoka, we work with systemic social entrepreneurs around the world, 4,000 of them in about 90 countries. And we've learned from them how they change systems. Their type of leadership, their empathetic, servant, persistent leadership and systemic way of working can help address those systemic challenges. I mean, I actually started out Ashoka 5 years ago, working very closely with our Ashoka fellows through our fellowship program. And one of the things that became very clear to me is the last 2 points here, and that's that systemic work is very different from what we typically would describe as maybe project or program-based work. Right? Systemic work means to maybe advocate for policy change, to share knowledge, to influence key stakeholders. And all of that requires a different mindset, a different approach, different measures of success, and importantly, adaptive strategies. So that kind of work is difficult to impossible to do if it is packaged up in a sort of restricted project with a clear start to end, with very restrictive measures of success and indicators based often on measures like how many beneficiaries have been reached. All of those are constraining what's possible when we think about systemic work. But unfortunately, most funding is geared towards that kind of project or program-based work. So following the journey of our Ashoka fellows, I've learned that basically the work that they describe as being most impactful, their systemic work, is receiving the least funding. And that's kind of what propelled me to go into this. I see the kind of a systemic issue here in our sector where we see the most potential for impact is also where there's the least funding. So that's what brought us into, certainly brought me into this field of work. And just 2 quick stats to illustrate a bit the challenge here. So to do this kind of systemic work, one of the most important types of funding is unrestricted long-term funding. But when we conducted the research for our report, we found that almost 3/4 of the system change leaders that we have interviewed, so people who are quite advanced already and who've somehow managed to fund their work, have less than 1/4 of their funds available to them unrestricted. All of their other funding is restricted in some way, and therefore restricting their ability in many cases to achieve system change. And one more that's a challenge from our experience is that often these restricted ways of funding actually change the direction, the scope, require the social entrepreneur, the social change leader, the system change leader to adjust their path just to fit with funder criteria. Even though they tend to be the ones at the forefront of system change who are deeply embedded in the systems. So this is also an appeal to funders to put more trust into system change leaders, who are dedicating their life to changing these issues and build on their experience in the way that they fund. Thank you.